Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Maitland City Council meeting of October 25th, 2021. If you would please silence any cell phones or anything you have that might go off inadvertently during this meeting. This evening we're going to start off with an invocation by Mary Chrisman of the Central Florida Free Thought Community.
Thank you, Mayor Lowndes and council members, for this opportunity to offer an invocation. The city thanks you and all city employees for the hard work and effort you bring. Tonight, as we gather to do the essential work, let us put away any distractions that may take us from this meeting. Let us recognize the opportunity this meeting brings to come together as a community, to embrace all our differences, and to create something stronger. For each and every one of us here tonight, love the city of Maitland. We are a diverse group, but we are also one, here not by coincidence, but because we choose to work and to volunteer together. We are active and proactive. May we recognize all voices at this meeting, providing ample time for any questions. May we be patient and compassionate as we listen, creating space for kindness, understanding, and dignity. May we use reason and impartiality to reflect. The great Robert Ingersoll reminded us that we rise by lifting others. Tonight, as we conduct the business of the city, may we take the time to lift everyone in the city the way others have lifted us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chrisman. If you would please now join me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Thomas, I think we have a presentation to make this evening. Are you going to help us out with that?
This is Orange County Week of the Family, and since Maitland is all about families, it seems a fitting time to issue a proclamation for this. Penny Gilson, and from the Week of the Family Foundation, if you'd like to come on up and I'll read the proclamation here. Whereas the City of Maitland supports the mission of the Week of the Family, which is to strengthen family relationships through education, wholesome activities, fitness, and community service. And whereas the City of Maitland recognizes the importance and value of the American family as an essential part of the cultural, social, and spiritual fabric of our community. And whereas the structure of the family has changed dramatically, but the essential importance and satisfaction of family life is a source of love, guidance, hope, courage, determination, and inspiration has not changed. And whereas everyone has a right to play in making families successful, including neighborhood organizations, businesses, nonprofit agencies, policymakers, and families themselves. And whereas it is our intent to commemorate family life and to instill awareness of the need for peace, harmony, and security in our families, now therefore I, Mike Thomas, of the Maitland City Council, do hereby proclaim the week of November 6th to November 13th, 2021 as Week of the Family. In the City of Maitland, Florida, in recognition and celebration of the American family, and encourage our citizens to recommit to enhancing and extending all of the connections that strengthen and enrich this most valuable institution. And like I said, this goes back, Maitland was founded as sort of a suburb for Lockheed Martin years and years ago, and we built our schools here, and they're still the best schools in Orange County, and our neighborhoods are still the place to be on Halloween. So, as we will certainly see. So, Patty, would you like to say?
Well, I just would like to say thank you to the city of Maitland for allowing us to be here and for supporting Week of the Family. We believe that families are the bedrock of society, and just like in the proclamation how it says, we're all about trying to strengthen the family. We believe that as we strengthen families, we strengthen communities. If I would invite everyone, we did leave some flyers out in the lobby with lots of activities that will be going on throughout that week. There's a QR code to take you to the link of our website where you can find all kinds of activities to spend time with your family. So thank you.
Sure. And here's, you have to do the proclamation in the picture.
Great smiles.
Right.
Thank you, guys.
That was great. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. First order of business tonight is public hearing on the ordinance regarding the Thurston House. Lorraine, can you please read the ordinance title?
An ordinance of the City of Maitland, Florida, authorizing the city manager or designee to lease certain properties owned by the City of Maitland, providing for conflict and providing for an effective date.
Okay, thank you. One of your shorter ones. Mr. Brigantine, could you?
Sure,
Introduce
just briefly to sort of remind everybody of where we're at tonight. As we discussed at the September 13th and 27th City Council meetings, City Council was open to the idea of continuing the use of the Thurston House as a bed and breakfast. However, the City Council wanted to take a two-step approach to the transfer. The first was on September 27th to amend the lease to provide for a rent abatement during the period where Carol and Joe were transitioning out of it and finding a new tenant for the bed and breakfast. And it also allowed for a termination of the existing lease upon execution of new lease with the tenants. The second step was to put together an ordinance that would adopt a format for the new lease because there wasn't a potential tenant in the ranks yet. So what we're here tonight on second reading and adoption is to adopt ordinance allowing the city manager to execute a new lease. That's one of the changes that City Council requested, that it wouldn't have to come back to City Council. Additionally, within the lease itself, there's the new items are a no pet clause, there's a security and advanced lease deposits, requirements that the tenants remain on site when guests are present. Reference to the city arborist has been changed to Public Works Director or designee, since that position is somewhat transitional and sometimes it's filled and sometimes it's not, so that's been designated to Public Works Director. And the term premises and lease premises have been clarified to be consistent and synonymous. So with that, after receiving public input, staff recommends to adopt the attached ordinance.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brigantine. Anybody have any questions of Assistant City Manager? Seeing none, why don't we go ahead and open the public hearing? Does anybody from the public want to address the council and the public generally on this item? So please come on up.
Yeah, Dale McDonald, 108 Tangelo Court, and I'm still continue to be taken aback about this being the highest and most beneficial use to the taxpayers, for the taxpayers of the city of Maitland. This is a business that only exists based on the benevolence of the council and the citizens of the city of Maitland. We seem to be, and it's nice for people as Carol and Joe have been for the last 32 years. We don't work for Carol and Joe. We work for everybody out here. And I can't help but believe, and I've had a chance to speak to a couple of you in some detail, there are other alternative ideas about how both that specific parcel and the remaining land around the city-owned property of that, I guess, give or take 7 acres, that can have broader community benefit.
Oh my God.
And that given that, and I'll be happy to discuss that with you. So, I can't help but believe that we can do better than what we've done for the last 30-odd years. Trying to see and I know we found ourselves puzzled by what to put there. Anything to avoid a referendum that might possibly include a sale of the property or conveyance of the property to someone else. And the idea of executing a lease when you have no idea who the lessee is going to be, it's just concerns me. Where we seem to be, as a council, more concerned with value of conveying a business that only exists at from the benevolence of the city of Maitland. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McDonald. Anybody else want to address the council on this issue? Now's a chance. Seeing none, let's go ahead and close the public period and bring back up here for further discussion. Does anybody have any further concerns about this, or should we move it towards a...
Mr. Mayor, this is a second reading on this issue. I move to approve the Thurston House lease and for us to move to adopt the ordinance approving the lease and the format of the new lease.
Okay, well, thank you. We have a motion.
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, second for discussion. Is there any discussion on the item?
I don't entirely disagree with Dale. I'm sort of in the quandary of what do we do with it. And something Lindsay said a couple meetings ago about who knows what that property will be good for in 10 years or 20 years. And so this is sort of like I saw this lease as sort of like a placeholder. Personally, I would like to put the property, at least the part of the property that the house sits on the charter amendment, to have it taken off the heritage lands, and so we would have more freedom to do something with it down the road. I don't think it belongs on heritage lands. There's been discussion about the residents voted to put it on there years ago, but those circumstances and why they voted to do that are very different from today. So I don't think that vote is applicable to today. Those are my thoughts. I would like to get this off the heritage lands. I would like to have more flexibility in deciding what we want to do with it. But during that meantime, I don't know what else we can do with it. That's why I'm not wild about this lease. I have my doubts that that thing is going to be a viable business a few years down the road, which is why I've talked about making sure that we have a ironclad take back on that without getting in a snarl about it. That's kind of where I'm at.
So I kind of agree with Mr. Thomas, is that, there's a use for it, and I think there's a better use than what this is. Where are we with this? Are there people interested in this business right now? Do we know that? Has
Yeah, well-
anybody step forward?
Well, when I spoke with Carol last week, she has an interested party that is waiting for the lease to be approved.
If these people come in and it doesn't work out for them, then this would come before us again and we could find a different use for it. So this is what we're really looking at right now is, since we've already, is just the agreement, correct? That's all
Yeah.
we're
The
ruling on
format.
tonight.
Mhm.
I think a lot of these things are, I agree with actually a lot of the comments, and my issue with this is just the length of term that we've kind of committed to here without kind of knowing who the next user was. I think we were very comfortable with the users of the past and the length of term that it had because the Vows have been such a good partner. I think committing to this long term is the issue I have. I think the way I read this could go for another, depending on how long it takes them to find another replacement tenant, it could be 12 years. If they sign a new tenant tomorrow, it's 10 years. If they waited 6 months, it'd be 10 years and 6 months. I mean, it's tying up the property for a while, for a use that, who knows? And I wish whoever buys it the best of luck. I hope it's a successful business. So I just think we're tying it up for a long term with the uncertainty of who that next user is going to be.
I really think that I have said everything there is to say. I'd be re-summarizing my previous comments at previous meetings, so I'm going to just move on.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I understand the concerns we have with this. I think we've had kind of a serendipitous relationship with the Ballard for the last 30 years, and it's worked out for everybody. And if somebody comes forward and we have that same stroke of luck, this could be great for another 10 years, or if not, and if it doesn't happen, then there we are. But we'll have to figure out what to do with it. And it may be that this lease doesn't come at all, so it'll be before us sooner rather than later. That's to be seen. So, you know, it's a beautiful piece of property. It's a wonderful park asset. You know, I would say that I don't see taking that off the heritage lands or not making it parkland. I mean, I think it's really, personally, I can't imagine selling off parkland for development. I just don't see need for that in Maitland either. So that's my concern about that. But that's not to say that we can't find a different use for the service in Maitland. So that said,
I'm with you, John. I think it's a great piece of land. I don't know what that means. But is it best? Is that piece of land best used as a bed and breakfast? I don't know.
Well, again, on the heritage lands, I was thinking more of the piece of property where the house is, not the entire 7 acres. Because the open area that's out there, I think I would catch that. I wouldn't develop that. I mean, that's just a nice area for people there to live around that area. So it's kind of figuring out what to do with that house that I can't quite wrap my head around.
right, it's a difficult one. That said, time for a vote. We have first motion and a second.
Councilmember Guthrie.
Aye.
Councilmember Hall Harrison.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Wild.
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes.
Aye. Thank you. Let's see where that goes. Thank you, Mr. Rickman.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Carol.
Yes, thank you, Carol.
Thank you.
Okay. City manager, is any old business report?
I don't have any old business. I will have some items under the manager's report, but we can wait for them.
Okay, come back around to you. Next on the agenda is the consent agenda. Is Does anybody on council wish to remove any items from the consent agenda? Does anybody from the public?
I'm trying to remember if that's the stormwater I wanted to talk about or the building code service. I think it was the stormwater. Yeah, I just had something on the stormwater. It's really a question. Should I just ask a question or you want to pull it off for later?
Well, if it's going to lead to any kind of a change or anything, if that's
I
what
don't
you're
think
asking,
so.
or just clarification.
Yeah, it's just a quick question on.
Okay, let's go ahead and deal with that real quick.
Okay, I just saw on stormwater number 7, implementation of the model. I don't know, I was thinking this is contract, so I wanted to bring it to your attention. It says 5 locations, but in the contract you only have 4 on there, in case they're saying Domrick Hills Phase 2 and 4 are two separate.
So that's the sewer.
Is that the sewer?
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought it was the stormwater. My bad. But we'll get to that later. Or no, that's the sewer is number
Yeah, that's
6.
the-
Yeah, sewer is number 6. Sorry, I pulled it out and then put it up front, and then I was like, oh, what did I pull it out from?
Okay, I'm sorry. So I was thinking stormwater, so what was the question?
On the sewer number 7, implementation of the model using a model,
Uh-huh.
B&N. At 7A, it says 5 locations, but 7B only has 4 locations. Is there one missing, or is that just a typo?
I think that's a typo.
Okay.
Yes. And those are specific areas. They will model the whole system.
Right.
So if we do need to, if we see an issue with any other portion of it, we can get into more detail at that point.
Okay, I just wanted to bring it to your attention when I saw it.
Thank you.
Thanks, and I'm excited about it. This is great.
You good?
You done?
All right.
John, I have a question. Is there, about the recreation instructor? I don't know whether I want to pull this off the agenda. I'm just wondering about the amount of work that this person is doing for the compensation that's being given.
So the larger
I'm sorry, I didn't
Let's
bring this
pull
up
that off.
earlier.
I might want to talk about that too, so.
I'm sorry, I didn't bring it up earlier.
Okay, so
Mayor, I move we approve the consent agenda and pull off item number 2, the recreation instructor services.
Okay.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second on that. We're going to move the recreation instructor down below decision number 3. Okay. Motion and a second. Maria, would you, wait, I don't think I got all the way through this. Does anybody from the public like to address any of this issues? And if none, I don't see anybody jumping up. We'll close the public comment on that. Maria, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Hall Harrison.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Wild.
Aye.
Councilmember Guthrie.
Aye.
Mayor Lance.
Aye. Okay. So now is the point, which probably a lot of you are here for. This is the public period, where everybody is allowed to come and address us on any item that's not on the agenda this evening. And so please go on, everybody gets 3 minutes. We'll hear all the comments and go through the public period. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Colleen Lilly from 250 Seneca Trail. And I would like to talk about I'm going to be missing Maria retiring in November 30th. But I do support Ms. Kathy Sotero to become our new city clerk.
So, thank you, Ms. Lilly.
Hi, my name is Julie Fisher. I am an original vendor at the Maitland Farmers Market. Been there from the very beginning when it was at Quinn. There's a bunch of us here today, and if everybody could stand up, who's from the Maitland Farmers Market. We just have a few things, and everybody has a little bit of a different feel for this, but I have 2 points I just want to bring up since I have my 3 minutes. One of which is the timing of when you all decided to do this. It's our most profitable quarter. And the timing that you all decided to get us to move is going to be severely detrimental to many, many of us. We're obviously, as you know, we're unhappy with the location that you're moving us to. That's critical. And I really, really don't understand the point. We understand you need to do renovations at Lake Lily. We love Lake Lily. But let us go back. We want to go back to Lake Lily when you've done all those renovations. This is not, this is the thing. I've done markets for 14 years. I've seen them all. I've always been at the Maitland Farmers Market, but I've also done on Fridays and Saturdays all over Central Florida. There is not a better location for a farmer's market than around Lake Lily. That you want to take it away from not only us, the vendors who work so hard for so long, but to take it away from your people, to take it away from the citizens of Maitland, because that's what makes that market so unique. You have made everything there beautiful for us as the vendors, but also for your population. And we really don't understand why you want to not let us go back there once you've made those improvements, which are lovely. But the location here is just going to make it another little farmer's market. And it takes away so much of the ambiance and the family cohesiveness and being able to walk around the lake and have the breezes come and the shade. And and we've been doing it for 14 years. And anytime you move a market, it's very detrimental. So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth, and I know that there's a few others that probably want to say something, but I wanted to be on the record for this because we are passionate about it. We love this market. Our market manager is amazing. She looks out for us, and we just want to
Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher.
Hello, how are you all, council, today? We're good. I'm Lucy Lyle, and I run Lyle Cosmetics. Oh, can you take it off? Okay.
I'm sorry, we didn't get your name and address, please.
I'm 740 Haven Oak Court, Apopka, Florida, and I'm also here representing the Maitland Farmers Market as well. I have farmers markets all over. I have Winter Garden, and I do Winter Park, and I have Sanford and Mount Dora. But I tell you guys, you're making a brutal mistake. Like, that market has something that is special that none of those other farmers markets have. And I mean, it's the family, it's like, I can't even, there's something there that for the public that is amazing. And it's like not just all the people that go there. I know half these people are like family to me. And I know some of them like are in their retirement ages and that this is their income. You know, that like part of their income that you guys are going to take away if that happens. And not that the new location isn't a beautiful location, but it was just like you guys gave like no notice. Like there was no, like you guys could have talked to everybody in summer and said, hey, there's going to be changes going on or something like that. It was like, it felt to me like somewhere along the line someone dropped the ball. And then it was just like, okay, we'll go out there and let all those wonderful people know that we're just going to go ahead and close it down. And also I second the fact that I hope that you guys reconsider a chance to really go back out there again. Because Lake Lily, like I said, is amazing. Like Winter Garden, Winter Park, all those places are great. But there's nothing like Maitland Farmers Market. You're right, Gladys. You're right. So, thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you.
Please come up. Give us your name and your address and
Hi, my name is Julia Scott, and I'm from 740 Haven Oak Court as well, about other half of Lyle Cosmetics. Normally I'm usually the sign-off partner, so this is very, very interesting you get me up here to speak. But I'm here today to let you guys know and to convince you and persuade you that you need to, if not postpone the move and relocation of the farmers market to up here, then you should avoid it entirely. And it'll just take me a few minutes of your time, and I appreciate that you stop and still see all of us, even during all of the pandemic and stuff. With moving up here, or in sales, they always say you gotta tell them what you're gonna tell them. Tell them, and then tell them what you told them. And hopefully you make an impact. And when we moved the farmers market up here, because Maitland really is a city about family, and that's what's so wonderful about it. And that's why we're all so passionate to be up here today, because we are a giant family down there. And when you bring us up here, part of our family is the dogs and the children, and the little children dogs, they call them puppies. You'll see them around. Trust me. And we're going to be all up in the grass. We love them, and they're part of the family, but you guys don't allow the pets on the grass. And if you're using that as a play area for the children, you're not going to want the dogs around the little children, because that's how bite attacks occur. And it's a lack of proper planning and setting things up. If this was the course that you guys do want to take, and if it is, I won't just try to dissuade you. But if you do it, you need to plan it far enough ahead so that way the customers and the people that we have our relationships with, who come out every week and support us, and we support them at their businesses during the week, because they're entrepreneurs and locals and people who live and work in this wonderful community too. We needed to start telling them about this months ago, 3 to 4 times, because if you tell them what you told them, or tell them what you're going to tell them and tell them what you told them, there's a good chance they're going to remember it. So we don't want to be up here. The local businesses, they aren't going to want us here. We have very similar items. We run the very similar people, so it doesn't work for them. It doesn't work for us. And it doesn't help sustain all the families that you want to facilitate in this wonderful community. So if I can just remind you of one thing, we have the power to change this. We don't have to set this course. We can choose to put it off. We don't have to do this. This is all within the choice. There's no cost to money. There's no requirement of will or strength. It's just a choice. So let's take a moment right now, take a call to action, and choose to do something better for our families and loved ones and our furry friends. And that's all I got. Thank you. Thank you.
As comfortable as I am being here, I wasn't expecting to speak on this one. And I'd like to pose a question. I guess I wasn't understanding that this move of farmers market from its rightful spot up to Independence Square was a permanent move. Was that misunderstanding? I thought it was going to be some transitional move while there was going to be some much needed renovations to Lake Lily Park. Because that's what I would only imagine. I would never support a permanent move to here to Lake Lily, to Independence Square.
Thank you.
And you guys know that I know that stuff pretty well. I get by there after church every Sunday, so it's the right place. It's not broken. I would love to see some even greater consideration given to, just to muddy the water a little bit here, no pun intended. I wonder if Lake Lily Park could somehow become our version of a South End regional pond, or some stormwater possibilities. Just as a side thought, because there are certainly broader considerations to come into that, but from purely a farmer's market standpoint, it's not broken. let's not pretend that we're going to outsmart ourselves and fix something that is not broken. Thanks.
Thank you.
Some guys do anything for applause.
You deserved it that time, sweetheart.
I deserve it every time.
Mayor,
I like that you're humble.
you okay here? Mayor, council, staff, been a long time since I've been at this microphone. But my name is Doug Kinson. I was former mayor of the city of Maitland from the years 2006 to 2011. Married to Barbara Kinson, kindergarten school teacher right here in Maitland. We live at 1151 Cokewood Trail here in Maitland, 32751. And in 2007, which I believe was the year the farmers market was born. It was a year into my term, and I think it was 14 years. If I'm missing that, let me know. For the last 13 and almost 14 years, my wife and I have been going to the farmers market at Lake Lily. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to share with you the experience that we've had for over 13 years. We get up in the morning, we take our dog, for a lot of family cohesiveness talk here, we take our dog, get the dog in the car, get the leash, put it in the car, we drive to the market, very adequate parking, which I'll talk about later. We go up to the top, park there every single Sunday, get the dog out. I sit on the steps, I watch the families coming and going from the playground, while dad or mom goes and gets the goods, and then dad or mom goes in and watches the child on the playground. Once my wife is done getting the produce from the produce vendor, who by the way won't be there in a week, we then walk around the lake, Lake Lily. One of the most beautiful things we do during the course of any given week. We walk around the lake, over the walkway, over to a bench on the other side of the lake with our puppy. I get up from the bench, I take the puppy down to the water. She sees the ducks and wildlife and everything else, flying across the lake and everything else. Now, it really depends on how hot it is outside, but we stay there for an extended period of time. While we sit on the bench, we see all the people from the apartments and all the people from Maitland who are there on a regular basis. Every single week, we see a lot of the same people. It's one of the best experiences we have had here in the city of Maitland. The family cohesiveness side of this is something you really, all of you need to take into account. And if I could have a little bit of leeway on the time, I've got a number of things to say. When I was mayor, we were with Donna and Dean Sprague, and any issue that came up, I sat with them outside of council meetings and I talked about the pluses and minuses. You've talked through a lot of the pluses and you've heard some of the minuses here tonight. But with all that the Maitland Farmers Market at Lake Lily means to my wife and I and our family, there are some concerns. I did have an opportunity to talk with the city manager. The city manager let me know that there were infrastructure improvements that need to be taken care of. And somebody that's been there every year for 13 years, I know what she's talking about. So that in and of itself is something that needs to be handled. It needs to be something to be taken care of. However, I do understand while those infrastructure improvements are taking place, there are going to be a series of events that are going to occur while they're taking place. If I'm wrong on that, let me know. I'm almost done. Secondly, the impact on businesses was the primary thing that council had talked about. My wife and I go to the restaurants. We come down here all the time. We love it down here. If you really think about it, every Sunday, the only impact on those businesses is really going to be during the lunch hour. And the question then becomes, how many of the customers that go to the farmers market are actually going to be going to those businesses?
Thank you.
Next. And I'm almost done, so I appreciate the leeway. The impact on residents is important. As I was talking to folks about this, at Lake Lily, there's no adjacent residential. Zero. There's a train track, there's the center, and then there's another lot where the apartments are. This is right next to the apartments. If I'm sleeping in this apartment building, guess what's gonna come 7 o'clock every single Sunday morning? It's gonna be trucks, they're gonna be parking, they're gonna be taking stuff out, and it's gonna be an issue. So one thing I want you to do, I want you to take that into consideration. Next, I'm almost done, promise. Safety. Safety, there's one of you that knows what I'm gonna talk about, safety, because there's no crosswalk on that road. That's where I parked. I came across here, there is no crosswalk over there. And I think I might have almost run one of you over when I was trying to park. So safety. And then finally, this isn't the most important, but I'm not bringing my dog here to walk my dog when there's roadway after roadway after roadway all around it. That's just not what we're gonna be doing. So if I were in your shoes, Mr. Mayor, what I do is I get with staff, I understand it wasn't a decision from council, I get with staff and look at all aspects of this. We've already lost our produce vendor, somebody that we've done business with for well over 10 years. I understand that there's another produce vendor that's coming up, but please, 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 take everything that you're hearing here into consideration. Once the infrastructure improvements are done, seriously bring it to council and actually make a council vote as to whether or not to bring it back to Lakewood. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's hard to follow that. I am Kathy Paiva. I am co-owner of Hearts on Cookies. I am one of the vendors that has been at the Maitland Farmers Market for 10 plus years. You all have something magical there, and I think all of us feel that there's a sense of community, a sense of family that you do not see at other markets. We do have so many regulars. We as vendors become part of their family, but we also get to see them experience what you have created at Maitland. And it's beautiful. There is not a more beautiful location for a farmer's market anywhere. And I think what all of us are feeling so frustrated with is that there was no communication. I know that we are also a part of Winter Park Farmers Market, and they made a choice during COVID to move the farmers market from the location by the train station over to a field. Well, when things were getting better with COVID, they had an opportunity to move it back. But what did they do? They ended up doing a survey with the community, but also with the vendors, and got their opinion on do they want to stay where they were or do they want to go back to the other location. And they made a decision that to stay where they were, even though they had a facility that was dedicated to the farmers market, because it was a better experience for the customer and for the vendors. Vendors' sales improved. This is going to be devastating to us. Right now, as a recently retired person due to COVID, this is my only source of income. And to take this away when I've been a part of the Quinn Strong move, we had to temporarily move us. And our sales went like a fourth of what they were before we moved us. And it's taken until now to get it back. So I just wish that you would at least talk to the people that it affects. It affects the community. We had person after person come up to us unsolicited saying, please don't do this, please don't move this. This is part of what we love about our weekly activities. So that's all I need to say.
Thank you, Kathy.
I am vaccinated, so. And I sell COVID tests, so I know nothing about it, you guys say. My name is Todd Ponlight. I live in the Winter Springs area. I have business interests in one of the vendors at the market. I am a business person in real life. I've owned a business, been part owner of a business, so I understand decisions that have to be made. But I guess what I'm questioning here is, again, when we talk about timing, for all of us, I mean, there are people here, this is their income. You know, some of them are on Social Security, which you're gonna hear from her in a couple minutes. This is their income. You made it at the worst possible time. Lindsay, I don't know how to address you, but I'm sorry if I'm saying it correctly. And John, I think I saw you back there. I've been one of those vocal people about this. I know what it means to the community. And I was going to steal her thunder. In 2 days, we got 824 signatures from people in the community who did not want this to move. 2 days. You could get 824 people who say they wanted to move, probably in 5 years. The community loves that market. And that's part of why I go there. Second thing, when I look at this building, I know we're going to lose half our income when we move here. Because families aren't going to come. They're going to go to Lake Eola, other places, because it's not a family atmosphere anymore. And the businesses here, there's, I think I counted yesterday, there's 7 or 8 restaurants and 1 coffee shop. We have 5 food vendors and we have a coffee person.
Damn good coffee.
And we're going to take business away from them. So the idea that you guys are trying to bring this part down, provides part down, it's going to hurt them. Because we have better food and better prices. And the last thing we'll talk about, we talked about the dog and family, all that. We'll talk about safety, which was mentioned by the mayor. You know, when we're coming in the mornings, it's really when we're packing up. We're getting big trucks in here, some of these people. And when you're trying to pack up, load up, people are still trying to walk through to get to the restaurant, get to the Sanford Brewing Company. It's going to be safe for them. I doubt any of you took that in consideration. We got big trucks moving in and out. And, that's your lawsuit, not ours. So I'm going to stand here because she's very nervous. I don't have to give her CPR.
My name is Debbie Elliott, and I'm a vendor at Lake Lily. I sell the coffee there with Blessed Bean Coffee.
Good coffee.
First off, I'd like to start off by saying that this is a very special place for families. There's a playground, and there's the lake for us to walk around. People walk around, they de-stress, they get back to their work week, and here, that's just not the atmosphere. We have a brewery across the street. There's no playground there. It's not family conducive. And so, I see that when I think of this park here, I think of adult entertainment, concerts, jazz nights, people bringing their beer and sitting down and listening to the music or whatever, and leaving the kids at home with a babysitter. I don't know if any of you have been to the movie night, but if you go there, you'll notice that parents come over, they sit their kids down in front of the screen, they go over to the brewery, and pretty soon all the kids are running around. And it was not a very fun night at the movies. I didn't enjoy it. I live on Social Security, and this is the way I supplement my income. You're moving me to a location that is right behind a Starbucks. Starbucks has a phenomenal reputation. Now, my product is better and it's cheaper. But even at Lake Lily, I see Starbucks cups come through. Can you imagine how many Starbucks cups I'm going to see when it's only 100 yards away? It's just not right. They're going to be competition for us, we're going to be competition for them. And it's just not right. This is a horrible time of the year to make a move. We have worked all year for this quarter. This is where we make our money, the holidays. And it's just not right. We need, if you could just put off the move to after the holidays. Do your your renovations then, and then move us back after that. We're losing so much income. We're just now recovering from COVID, and then you're putting us out in the cold. I will lose probably half, if not more, than my income, and I just can't survive in that. So I'm asking you to please take into consideration all of these things, the issues of safety, of familyness, of just cohesiveness, and reconsider your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Very well done, Deb. Go, Kelly. Go, Kelly. Give it to them, Kelly.
I'm Kelly Hastings. I'm one of the vendors at the market too. And, I don't want to recap what everybody else said, but, the big thing here, I've got my 11-year-old son with me here today. He helps out. He's getting a civics and politics lesson here today. I appreciate this opportunity to say something. I think the biggest issue that we as vendors have was that it appears that the decision was made without input from the community and without input from the vendors, and that it was kind of sprung on us. We had about 2 weeks' notice during the height of market season. Now, I don't know. I know that typically decisions have to be made, and this meeting is done in the sunshine, right? Everybody can come in and say something. And I don't know a lot about how the decision to move the market was made. I don't know if it was done at one of these meetings, and maybe we just didn't know and didn't have an opportunity to say something. Excuse me. But if it wasn't done that way, then it should have been. It should have been made in a way where the public can give some input and the vendors can give some input. We've got almost 1,000 signatures on a petition and more coming. There's still a chance to remedy the issue if the meeting wasn't done appropriately in the sunshine. We can do it now. There's case law that says that you can go back and remedy the situation by having a true public hearing. The market's been at Lake Lily for 14 years, and the vendors rightfully have concerns. A lot of them have been brought up already about, foot traffic issues, customer parking, vendor parking. The vendors now are able to park right behind our cars. And for a lot of the senior vendors, it's going to be not possible for them to carry all their things and to make the long trek. I understand we have to park kind of far away, too. There's other things that can be done other than, we want to benefit the businesses here. We're not against helping them. But it seems like it can be done in a way that maybe doesn't hurt the Lake Lily market vendors. I mean, there could be a Sunday after-hours farmers market here, other markets on other nights or days of the week. I've heard, other people bring up postponing the move till after the busy season or making it temporary. These all seem like workable solutions, and if we put our heads together and actually communicate, then we could come up with something. We're not saying pound sand, and nobody's infuriated, or we want to help the community too. But it just seems like this was done in a way that hurts us without helping the businesses to the best that it could. I see that I'm turning into yellow lights, so I'll just close by saying, let's do the right thing. Let's get public input. Let's look at alternatives instead of just making this market move with 2 weeks' notice and hurting the vendors and the community.
Thank you, Kelly.
Is there anybody else who'd like to address us tonight?
I was going to say that it's the holiday season. I'm not trying to repeat what everybody said, but I have a small business as part of my mom's tent, and all my income is from people looking for gifts or just kids being kids and wanting toys. Because I sell figurines. And if you know during this holiday season, not only is there not a viable playground for kids area that people actually want to play in, but it's also just because people don't want to drive out this far just for their kids to play in the grass while they check out restaurants. It's just that there's
You're doing great.
I also want to know one thing. When was the decision made?
They won't answer you, Emerson.
We're happy to hear your comments, and then we'll get into that a little bit later.
That's what I'm talking about. When was the decision made?
Okay, we need to there anybody else who'd like to address us this evening? On this issue or any other issue? Okay. Well, let's close the public period, and I'd like to say that this is not an item that's on the agenda tonight, so we're not going to make any decisions tonight on this, and that's because that's the way Sunshine meetings run, is because you have an agenda and you address the items that are on the agenda, but that's not to say that we don't take very seriously all of your concerns, and I'm sure you all have educated us tonight on a lot of things that we perhaps had not considered, or considered hard enough. But I do appreciate you all coming out. I think all of us here will take all your comments very seriously. I mean, this is an important part of how we do business in Maitland, is to figure things out together. I'm sorry we didn't have enough communication on this. I can say from our perspective, this is an item that council has been discussing on and off, and kind of not in a coordinated manner, but for several years. That the idea in building the park here was, we spent several $1 million to build this road and this park. It's a beautiful amenity for the city of Maitland, and the idea, I think, has always been to maximize that space for all the events that we possibly can. Now that we didn't build it with the intent of taking the farmers market in particular, but that was always something that we had been considering up here. Perhaps that consideration was not done perhaps with in concert with all the vendors or the community at large, but it's always been an item that's kind of come before. So like I said before, we don't have, this is not on our agenda, so we don't have decisions on this tonight. But we have heard you loud and clear, and we appreciate you coming out and spending your precious time. And on a Monday night, it's not easy to come out here and educate us on this. So I think there'll be more discussions between us and staff as we go forward and see if we can do what we can do. Man, we closed the public period. Do you have something urgent to tell us?
I just wanted to ask, is it possible to get it added to the agenda for future meetings?
It's possible, but that's something we'll discuss. Thank you. Yes. And as to the point whether or not this was done in the sunshine, it absolutely was done in the sunshine. This was an item that I think that individual council members have been talking to staff about, and we discussed it, and like I said, in kind of a roundabout way up here at the council. So this is not anything it's not something that was done in the dark of night or behind anybody's back intentionally, certainly. So again, I appreciate you all coming out, and please stay in touch with us. And we also, I should say also that we value you greatly. The farmers market is a great asset, and it doesn't work without everybody involved. So not only we appreciate you coming out tonight, but we appreciate you all coming out every Sunday.
John, to the lady's point, is it something that we need to put on the agenda for our next meeting, or are they already going to be moved along? Are they already going to be sent over here by that time, by next time we meet?
So the location of the farmers market's never been, it's more of an administrative issue, obviously with your consultation, but it's much like any of the parks programs that Jay runs. They don't typically come here to you for a vote, but I've taken copious notes, I'm sure Jay has, about all of the issues that were brought up, and I know Jay has been talking to the vendors and will continue to talk to the vendors and meet with the vendors and address any of those concerns. The work does need to happen at Lake Lily. You can see it if you go down there. It hasn't been touched up since I got here in the 90s.
Right.
Even the landscaping, the stormwater issues. So.
I think the point was made, and I think they should even make it a little louder, but it's their season, it's their holiday season, there's high time.
Thank you.
It almost feels like now we're discussing it.
Okay, yeah, I got you.
Oh, you don't want to talk about it now?
So it's not on the agenda, that's my point.
Okay, all right, it's not an agenda item.
This move is taking place in 2 weeks, just for clarification of what you just said.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all. We're going to move on now with the other part of our decisions this evening. And the first item we have is the ordinance for right-of-way abandonment.
Thank you. Wasted time. It's a pleasure to get up next week.
President, 10 weeks will already be, so it's going to a vote this Thursday.
Okay, we need to move on with the other items on the agenda this evening. Thank you for coming. Maria, do we have an ordinance for this, the right-of-way abandonment? Can you read the title?
An ordinance of the city of Maitland, Florida, vacating and abandoning a portion of Lake Catherine Drive right-of-way, according to the plat thereof as recorded in Plat Book R, page 47 of the Public Records of Orange County. More particular described in Exhibit A, providing for conflicts, recording, and an effective date.
Okay, thank you. Sharon, can you introduce the item, please?
And actually, Kim is up there, she's
Kim?
going to
All
cover
right.
the detail.
Ms. Tracy, would you do the honors?
Yes. The property owners at 815 Lake Catherine Drive submitted a request to abandon a portion of the right-of-way on Lake Catherine Drive adjacent to their property. They are requesting 21 square feet be vacated in order to rebuild their existing dock. So all of the requirements of the application have been met that are called out in the city code. And the Development Review Committee recommended approval for the request to vacate at their meeting on October 14th, 2021. So staff's recommendation is that after receiving public input tonight is to move to introduce the ordinance to vacate and abandon this portion of Lake Catherine Drive and set the public hearing in action for November 8th.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Does anybody have any questions of the...
I'm sorry, is there a map or something or a picture that I can see exactly what we're abandoning?
We have the survey. I'm not sure if we could pull up the map.
It's actually kind of ridiculously small. It's like this tiny, tiny little walk.
21 square feet.
It's right there.
Yeah, it's 6 feet by 3.5 feet.
It's tiny.
Yeah.
It's a first reading, so we can definitely go the survey.
Okay, I don't want to hold this up.
Yeah, before the public.
Yes,
hearing.
absolutely. We'll put
I
that
just want to
down.
know, is that something that goes, does that lead itself to more further vacation issues or anything like that? Does it create like a little knot? That's the only thing I have is, how does this look when you look at the whole shoreline and the whole?
It will be just a small notch. It is the way that the lay of the land is right there. It's the only way to connect the walkway to the land. So we worked with the applicant to try to minimize the amount that would have to be vacated. So it would be a small little notch that we would put into our GIS system and, track it, make sure that we know that it's no longer right away.
Yeah, there's not much, if I remember right, it's pretty steep. There's not much land around Lake Catherine. So,
On that side, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, any comments or questions for?
No, we don't see this leading to the neighbors wanting to be the next Joneses, and Joneses, everybody asking for land, or we're not going to have a problem with, we need it for sewer, water, or anything, right?
No, it's
Okay.
right next to
Good.
the water.
Okay, let's open the public hearing on this item. Does anybody have anything to discuss on this particular item? Please come up.
Hey everybody, John Middleton. It's my property, 815 Lake Catherine Drive. And I love living in city of Maitland. There's a lot of emotion earlier, and I love walking up to the right there at the farmer's market from Lake Catherine. It's like a nice family event, just kind of throwing that out there. It's why we chose Maitland over Winter Park, kind of growing up in the whole area, and why we wanted to build here and why we did all that. So I just kind of throw that in there from where I was before. For this piece of property, I bought the property from Mr. Peacock from HHCP over there, and he had an existing dock, but it's super rickety. It's like moves all over the place. My parents are in their 80s. My brother Jason, also next door neighbor. Our kids have grown up together. over the last 12, 13 years that I moved there, so it's kind of nice. We share a backyard. And I just want to be able to have something safe for my folks while they're still able to kind of do the walk, that we can make family memories. Unfortunately, I tried before COVID, and I didn't really understand how to work through the kind of all the requirements that it would take. And my daughter graduated, which was really emotional for me, because I wanted this to be a memory with her, and I just couldn't navigate all this stuff. And I got one daughter left, and I want to have good memories. And I want to do it on my property and not have to worry about this rig. If anyone's been over there, it is like a single lane, 45-degree angle. There is zero shot anything's going down over there. You know, so I just want it to be a safe, healthy place where we can just continue to enjoy and make memories. That's about it. So I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to address council on this item? Seeing none, let's close the public period. Is there any further discussion?
I'll move to introduce an ordinance to vacate and abandon a portion of Lake Captain Drive and set a public hearing and action date for November 8th, 2021.
I'll second Mike. First, a motion and a second. Maria, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Wild.
Aye.
Councilmember Guthrie.
Aye.
Councilmember Paul Harrison.
Aye.
Mayor Lance.
Aye. Okay, next item is, well, actually, now we need to go, oh, purchase, we need to, all right. This is the purchase building code services, the item that I removed from the consent agenda last time. And I think first off, we need to remove the item from the table. Do you have anybody who would make that motion?
Make the motion. You're up from the table.
Again, I'll second.
Okay, ready?
Councilmember Wild.
Aye.
Councilmember Guthrie.
Aye.
Councilmember Paul Harrison.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas.
Aye.
Mayor Lance.
Aye. Sharon, what should we do about
So on this item was the item that we had some concerns about the language that you had brought up. I know that you worked with Cliff's office. The piggyback contract has been revised. They accepted the changes with the exception of the tweak on the very last one. And I believe you got a chance to review those.
Yes, I did. All my concerns were addressed in there.
Okay. So we're just looking for a motion to approve
All right.
after the public.
Oh, yeah.
Make a motion.
Yeah. Slow it down. Anybody want to address the public on this? Let's open the public hearing on this particular item.
Soon they do not.
Open, and it's an open and shut case. Let's go with the motion.
I make a motion to approve the purchase building code services item.
Have a motion.
Second.
And we have a second. Ray, would you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Guthrie.
Aye.
Councilmember Paul Harrison.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Wild.
Aye.
Mayor Lance.
Aye. Okay, we should now turn to the item that we pulled from the consent agenda, which is the purchase of recreation instructor services.
And I can explain, so that contract is, he basically gets a commission. So it's Donnie who's out there at the community park, and if there's more lessons, he makes more money. Like during COVID, obviously everyone took up tennis. So it's now exceeded my authority. It doesn't mean we're going to pay him $70,000. It's a not to exceed based upon him earning commission by selling tennis lessons, private tennis lessons, other things he runs out there. So it's simply a not to exceed. He's not on salary. He's just a 1099 vendor who, we collect the fees and then we give him a portion of those. So it's just over 50. It could be 65, it could be 47. In the years it's bounced up and over 50. But to be on the safe side, since I can't approve anything over 50, it's on the agenda for up to 70, which would be.
So he's like any of the other people out there who do yoga
Yes.
and all the workout classes, they just
Right.
make the money
It's his
from
business.
how many people ever they bring in.
Exactly.
We
Okay.
theoretically get a cut because it's our property.
Correct. We keep a portion of it.
He does a great job.
Yeah.
He's a really
We
positive.
get a cut at all the soccer and lacrosse coaches.
He's great with the kids. He's a
My kids took lessons from, I take lessons from, did take lessons from. Couldn't help me, but he got my kids. All right, so I think we need to move to that just like any other item. Does anybody like to address, let's open the public hearing on recreation services? Anybody like to address us on this? Seeing none, we'll close it. And the motion will be in order.
I'll make a motion to approve the money for the recreational services.
Motion is second. Sorry, Maria.
Councilmember Paul Harrison.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Wild.
Aye.
Councilmember Guthrie.
Aye.
Mayor Lowndes.
Aye. Okay, now we have the discussion. We've got through most of our business. Let's have a discussion about charter amendments. We opened it last time, but Linda, you weren't here, so we want to make sure we get all the concerns addressed. So
I appreciate that.
Sharon, would you introduce us?
But I'm done here. Just to recap the October 11th meeting, there were 5 that came forward from the Charter Review Committee, 5 recommendations. Sounds like we're accepting the gender neutral language amendment, basically to bring the charter language up to date. The elected officials salary amendment, we were going to eliminate and not include that on there. And there was more discussion to be had on the 3 remaining, which is the vice mayor succession amendment, the clarification or amendment of term limits, and appointment removal of city officials and employees. So in 2012, the prior Charter Review Commission, it was their intent, or appears in the report, it was their intent to have the vice mayor only serve until the next election. However, this CRC in 2021 found conflicting language. And so they recommended clarifying and removing the conflicting language. And so the first part, it's section 203, the first part is fine, just defines who the mayor is, that they're a member of council, the term, and this is where the conflict occurs in the second part. So the council shall select from among its members a vice mayor, who shall act as the mayor during the absence or disability of the mayor, and if a vacancy occurs, shall become mayor for the remainder of the unexpired term. So first it's saying vice mayor becomes mayor for the remainder of the unexpired term. The vice mayor shall serve at the pleasure of the council, and then here's the conflict. If the mayor's seat is vacated during his or her term of office, then a new mayor shall be elected at the next scheduled election. So it's actually telling you 2 different things. 1, they'll serve out the term of the mayor. 2, they will only serve to the next election. And those last 2 sentences were added in 2012. So it actually, something needs to change in there. And we talked about last time, it depends, and I mentioned this to Cliff, is the 2 options that were on the table was, so 1, we go back to the way it was, and the vice mayor takes over, serves out the mayor's term, someone gets appointed to the seat that the vice mayor vacates. If the vice mayor doesn't want to become mayor, they can certainly give up and say, I don't choose to be vice mayor anymore, elect another vice mayor for someone who does, because we talked about whether his term was short or not. Or the opposite, and the way the 2021 CRC was heading, because of the 2012 question, it seemed like what the CRC wanted was this green sentence. If the mayor's seat is vacated during his or her term in office, then a new mayor shall be elected at the next scheduled meeting. The city attorney's office came up with language that basically says he performs the duties of mayor. And then that's where the question came in. It leaves you with 4 members of council. The 4 seats are filled. The mayor's seat is vacant because he's only acting as mayor. He's not actually getting sworn in. And which of these scenarios is worse? And in talking to Cliff, if there's some way, without ignoring this language, if there's something that you want to happen, we can ignore this language and just tell Cliff what it is you want to happen, and he'll come up with that language. So if neither of these scenarios are acceptable, then a third scenario you could throw out and he could research it.
What do the majority of other jurisdictions do?
I don't think there's a majority, but at least one that I can feel comfortable in opining about. However, I would tell you that because it's the mayor's office, even in a situation like Maitland's, where you have a a ceremonial mayor, basically one who presides over meetings but doesn't have the additional authority. Nevertheless, the office of mayor is considered to be important enough where you don't typically see, or don't always see, certainly not frequently see, a situation where an appointed mayor who is appointed in midterm or some point during a term of the elected mayor serves until anything other than the next election. So that is more typical, but I can't say it's the norm. And so where it says here, shall become for the remainder of the expired term, that would be more, my personal experience, unusual than having the mayor's seat filled at the next regular election and that the vice mayor just kind of is acting mayor until that time. But it's because of how the office of mayor is viewed, not necessarily because it has much more power in most cities other than, for example, Patka and Orlando.
So then, at that point, you have 4 members of council for the...
You would have 4 members of council unless you tied something differently. And that, of course, provides for the possibility of a tie, but there is a way around that. It wasn't considered by the charter review. It is perhaps controversial, depends on how you view it. And that is in situations where there are 6 council members, which is not unusual. The mayor only votes in the case of a tie, which happens only if somebody's not there. You could certainly do that here, so that if there was a 2-2 situation, the then acting mayor, instead of having 1 vote, would be able to break the tie with the second vote. So that is another amendment, but it would solve that potential problem. Or you can just say if it's a tie, it doesn't pass. Either way works.
It's fun to have that double vote. I'm sure I wish that upon anybody, but I mean, I don't know.
I just think the path of least resistance, you just serve out the term, and serve out the term of the mayor, and then the council appoints someone to replace that vice mayor immediately in the mayor's seat, right? Isn't that kind of how we...
If you take out the last sentence, yes, that's how it works.
That's how it works.
I mean, that just seems the path of least resistance instead of tying ourselves in a knot.
So Sharon, but that's sort of how we do it now. So the Charter Review Commission said we shouldn't keep doing it that way.
Well, so the current one was just trying to deal with the conflicting language. There was conflicting language. And then went back to the 2012 report, they did ask, I think I might have the question here. Here's the question that went out to the voters in 2012. Shall the Maitland Charter be amended to provide clarification? Oh, wrong one. Sorry, I don't have the language.
Let me ask Cliff this question, because
Yeah.
this is germane potentially to 2 of these. You have a 2012 referendum that says this is our charter, however it comes up as a vote, says this is what we want to do, right? There's direction from 2012 as to what they want, of what the voters voted for. If there's viewed as an issue of needing to clarify, do you have to do a charter review to say that we just want to tweak language to actually go through the purpose of what it was in 2012?
Yes, there are very few limited exceptions in which you can change a charter by ordinance. One of those, for example, being boundary restrictions. That you don't have to have a referendum on. But any substantive change, and this would be substantive, even though it eliminates a conflict, is going to require a referendum. The more germane question would be, well, can you say this is the more recent expression of the voters' intent? But the problem is, the voters weren't able to see, nor was apparently the prior charter review, that this is blatantly in conflict with this language. So how do you choose? If you had asked them just the first question, they could have voted yes on that too, and at some point they did. So that doesn't work in terms of trying to figure out what the actual intent is. Now, if we get in a lawsuit, if there was a fight about it, I could make the arguments. But that's what you're trying to avoid here by fixing the charter.
It's just because on 2 of these, it's like we're going to try to go out for a charter amendment that says, hey, we just want to clarify. We want to redo. We're sticking with your intent, voters, from 2012, or what the majority voted for. We're just going to slightly modify language to better express that intent.
Right. Those are kind of electioneering type of questions that individually you're allowed to speak on, but as a city we're not. But I would point out to you sort of the norm. Unless you're talking about something that hits people in the pocketbook, most charter amendments pass. And so I wouldn't tell you with a great deal of confidence that you could say, well, this is what the voters wanted. I think it was put in front of them, yes or no, they voted yes because it didn't affect their pocketbook. That's what I think.
Well, I don't know if we can discern voter intent here. To me, the path of least resistance is just trying to do what everybody does.
Yeah, so
I don't see a problem with the mayor. If John, runs off to Alaska and Mike takes his term, I don't see a problem with that.
So if Mike gets elected, and then John, sorry, John, you just go away as the mafia, you go away. And he takes his term for the next year until the next election, then he would only have been able to serve one of his 3 years.
Okay, that's his choice.
We might not get anybody to be vice mayor.
This is one of these things, I mean, like,
it's happened once in 36 years,
I
just
think
for the
we wrap
record.
ourselves in knots around something that's never really going to happen.
so what's your proposal, Mike?
I would just propose that the vice mayor serves out the mayor's term and be done with it.
The mayor's term or until the next election?
The mayor's term. I mean, that's what the vice president does, and the president just, and then the council appoints someone to replace the vice mayor's seat. And to me, that's so. If you get elected mayor, if we have a special election for a mayor, and so how long is his term?
Can I ask a
So do we change? So if John's elected mayor and then the next year he takes off, and so then the very next election we elect another mayor, then we kind of rejigger when the mayor's election is.
No, I think the way it was drafted is they're just elected for the balance of whatever that term is going to be at that point.
So
if it's a mayoral election, you've got 3 years. If he's just under a year, if it's seat 1 and 3, and then the mayor is going to be elected, then it's just the remainder of the mayor, John's term, whatever was left.
So we can appoint, the vice mayor can serve out the remainder of that term, 1 or 2 years, or the vice mayor or someone can run for office and fill out those.
How about if it's the opposite? How about if I've already done 5 of my 6 years, and John, like he says, he just goes somewhere,
it addresses
and
that
then
as
I
well.
come on and do I have 8 years that I can serve then?
So it addresses that as well. It will not extend your term if you're termed out. There's like multiple scenarios that go along with this language that follow, which I didn't include.
Right.
For just to keep things simple, because if we can decide, and it doesn't sound simple, but are you okay with the vice mayor serving out the rest of the term of the mayor upon his absence or disability or he vacates the seat? Or do you feel like, no, this is special enough, they knew that they voted for a mayor and they want to vote for another mayor? Those are the two paths. So
I'm inclined to go with the latter rather than the former, because we have discussed separately before that there are separate responsibilities belonging to the mayor which do not belong to the rest of council. So if we are and because we as council in round robin form elect a vice mayor to be one of us, that seems to me to be different enough that one of us is vice mayor this year, one of us is vice mayor next year. It's more of a random thing for a placeholder rather than specifically voting for the seat of mayor. So I'm more inclined to go with the language which says that the mayor's seat has to be re-voted than to put the vice mayor, who just happened to be the vice mayor because we all voted for that person at that particular time, to be then serving out the term that they didn't actually run for. That's my thinking on it.
Then you would go back to your seat once the election's over?
Right. You're just serving in that role because you're vice mayor for the sake of the fact that that's where you are, and you're doing that as an administrative role. But once a new mayor is actually found and installed, then you go back to being a member of council just as you were before, because vice mayor is something we choose among ourselves, not something that the voters choose.
So I think that then what you're saying is that you don't actually appoint a new mayor. I think that's the effect of what you're
If it
saying.
works the way it would in certain circumstances, the vice mayor assumes the duties, not the office per se.
Right.
He or she is the acting mayor. But as Ms. Harrison has discussed, after the next election of a mayor, which could be the vice mayor if that person chose to run for the office, then that's the seat you'd be filling. And so if by that discussion, the vice mayor decided, I'm going to stand for election now. I decided I want to go ahead. I've been doing the job. I've got a little momentum. People were just used to see me in the center seat. I'll run. Okay, but now you've declared the vacancy in that seat, and that seat is now up for election. If you choose to go back to the vice mayor seat, then that seat will be available for whoever wants to qualify, another council member or somebody else out here in the world of Maitland politics. So that's how that would go.
Right, and if you decided to run and you didn't win, you're out. You're out.
Same with it.
I'm certainly hoping we've talked more about this than it will ever come into play.
Yeah.
Well, given the 40-year history, the answer is yes, we have.
Yeah.
So I think that we should.
But we have to address the conflict.
It really was, and when it happened, the one time it wasn't an issue. Like, I don't ever remember it being an issue. It just happened, and I don't know what the issue was. We all survived, and it was fine.
So I think the question is, to me, the real question is, in the scenario where we don't fill the seat, are we okay with a 2-2 potential? That to me is the only issue with the proposal that we're kind of talking about is you now have a 2-2 vote possibly.
As long as it doesn't happen in the same year as the Thurston House, I think we're fine.
Well, I think it goes back to what Cliff said, Mike, was, you would just run the person who's taken over the duties of the mayor to be, maybe a non-voter or something, and then you would only have a 2-1.
Can't do that.
Can't do that?
That conflicts with a different portion of the charter called, as it was so eloquently pointed out to me many, many years ago, the rule of 3. Nothing passes this body unless it gets a minimum of 3 votes. It doesn't matter if only 4 people show up, 3 of them got to vote for it. If 3 of them show up, all 3 of them got to vote for it. So
if 4 show up, all 4 have to vote.
So to suggest what you're suggesting would require a change to the charter. And that's why the charter change I suggested possibly is having that person in that unique circumstance have 2 votes. One as mayor and one as council. But short of that, the answer would be straightforward.
Yeah.
Anytime you have a tie, it doesn't pass.
Right.
So it's not like there's not a decision. It's the answer is no.
Right.
It's a decided no. And that's per the rule of 3.
I think to me that sounds
Reasonable.
So why is there a vacancy? Why is there a vacancy on the council? I mean, doesn't the council appoint the vacant seat? I mean, if there's a vacancy of the mayor, and then the vice mayor steps up, council appoints the vacant seat.
If it's declared vacant.
Right.
And that's really the issue, because you're right. The question is, well, why would you appoint someone to fill the seat of the mayor? Well, that's because you have a vice mayor. Now you have a vacant seat. So what's been proposed, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that rather than that be the situation where you become the mayor, you instead, I think what's on the table is you assume the duties of mayor, but you don't leave your seat. And that mayor seat is going to be filled differently than a vacant council seat. And that is at the next general election cycle, whenever that would be.
So I think what we could do if we wanted to go this 2-2 route, is that you could have a vice mayor that fills in whatever, but if there's a vacancy in the mayor's seat, right, then the council would elect somebody to assume the responsibilities of the mayor until the next election. So essentially, you have a vice mayor who if the mayor's out for a meeting, the vice mayor fills in, so you don't have to have a vote every time. But if there's a vacancy in the seat, then the city council would allow, to designate a person on city council to assume the responsibilities of the mayor for the remainder until there's a next municipal election. So you're not appointing a mayor, nobody becomes a mayor, but the city council designates anybody, doesn't have to be vice mayor, to then run the meetings for the rest of the term.
Well,
Is that a role of vice mayor then? Why would-
yeah, well, under the current and under the proposed, it's not anyone. It is definitely the vice mayor under either the current scenario or the one that's proposed. The difference is, how do you view the vacancy of the mayor's seat? If you view it as it's going to remain vacant until the next election where we elect a mayor, that's one settle of fish, and that leaves you with the potential for two ties. If you say, no, we're going to actually elevate.
Why is that the case? Doesn't the council appoint to the empty seat from the former vice mayor?
That's what we're talking about. That's based on what is the current versus what is proposed. So it depends on which way you go. Under the current, it says that the vacancy occur shall become mayor for the rest of the unexpired term. That is the conflict. But if you stop right there, the answer, you'd have a mayor and you would clear not for the mayor spot, you would fill the spot that the vice mayor left. But then you have the second part here that creates this conflict about the next election and what happens and which way do you go. So in trying to clear up that conflict, you're actually trying to also answer the riddle of what do you want going forward? What do you want to do? Do you want to have where we fill the mayor's seat by appointment for whenever, or do we have the vice mayor come be the mayor as an acting mayor until the next election, or for the full remainder of the term of the mayor, whatever that is, a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever's left. But that's the question. Right now, we know what happens. The vice mayor moves up, but we don't know for how long because of the conflict.
So I know I would favor having an election for the mayor's seat because I think it's that important to the city. You know, I mean, we all got elected up here, and you know, I think they, you know, back to it, it's just important enough that I think it needs to be fulfilled by a vote by the voters.
So if it's longer than a year, then it has to occur. Practically, that's what that means. How long did Howard serve before he did Howard get appointed?
2 years.
He was 2 years before the next mayor's election?
Yeah, because he had just, wasn't he just moved up from P&Z maybe the year before?
Okay, so he served a year and a half, then there was a mayor's election, and he won the mayor.
Then we had an election, mayor's election next.
So in his situation, the mayor's seat was not up to be elected at the next election. We waited until the actual mayor's term was up.
That's right.
Yeah, so he,
And then we appointed someone, or they appointed someone to Howard's seat?
yes.
So, and in that
Jeff
situation,
Flowers.
if Howard had come on for like
Flowers.
2.5 years, it would have been the same. We just waited until he was served until the next mayor's election, not just the next general election, but just keep it on the schedule.
Correct.
So John, what was your take being on the charter? What was your, would you ride out a 2-2 until the next scheduled election?
It seems to me the way it should work is that the vice mayor should step up and serve as the mayor until the next general election. Then there's an election for the remainder of the mayor's term. And in the interim, the council appoints somebody to the vice mayor's seat. So there's 5.
So if you appoint someone to the vice mayor's seat, then he doesn't have a seat to go back.
Right. That's the conundrum.
So we can do that, and that's
Well, here's another thing is, you know,
And then you can run 2 people the next election, right?
Here's another thing, we're appointing somebody to make decisions for, you know, the city of Maitland and our citizens who we just decided, and, you know, they weren't really voted in. So
it's happened several
I
times.
know it's happened several times, I get that. But
In general, we do, I think that's how we got Mike over there first, huh?
That's right. Smartest move we ever made.
I think we did a pretty good job, so, you know.
If you beat this one up enough, then you want.
Vote for the mayor in the next election, and then replace the vice mayors, appoint someone to that seat. And if you're afraid of that's going to happen, and you don't want to be vice mayor, don't be vice mayor.
Yeah, I mean, likely that person's going to run, if they have any terms left, they're going to run for a seat or a mayor's seat anyway, so. But, I mean, that's just, so we continue to do what we've been doing and just we get rid of that conflict.
Yeah. I mean, that's the easier ways to get rid of that conflict.
I would be good with that then, so we vote for the mayor at the next election, and then we fill in the vice mayor's seat. Do we fill that in immediately? Right?
So
I guess the question is really for, just to kind of maximize the length of time so we can, the argument I'm serving, but so mayor gets elected, has a John Tyler moment and drops dead after because his inaugural parade was too long and cold. And then, so the vice mayor who was selected, steps up and serves virtually 3 years. And so that...
And that will count as a full term.
Correct.
For the mayor.
Right, and in the meantime, the council appoints somebody to whoever that vice mayor's seat was.
Till the next election.
So the question, I guess, is, do we want to have the mayor elected at the next general election, or we want to wait to have the mayor elected 3 years hence, in that scenario? I mean, because it, starts throwing things off, I guess, if you...
But you're saying there's, okay, so if we were using people who are actually here as an example, right? Mike is turned out and is about to leave council. What if Mike was vice mayor right now? John suddenly went off to Alaska, who has just been elected and come onto council. Mike, as vice mayor, steps into John's shoes, but Mike would also be turned out, and so is he going to be serving the remainder of John's term? Or you said there's a whole bunch of scenarios where that would trigger other things to happen. Do we want to be in that situation where we're having to look to other things to trigger, to back ourselves out of this?
So, if something like that happens and the person's termed out, it depends on which option. So under the option where the vice mayor simply performs the duties, so Mike Thomas starts performing the duties of mayor when John leaves, and he's turned out, he's got to go in April. Bye, and a new vice mayor has to take over the remainder of that. You cannot extend his term. Yeah.
So whoever the vice mayor is that we pick at that whatever meeting would then step in when Mike had to leave.
Right, then you guys would have to duke it out the following April to say who's going to be vice mayor. They would be performing the duties of the mayor, but by then, hopefully you've elected somebody.
I vote for the option which makes the least amount of, trouble.
So that's, to your point, so yes, actually the council would be electing the mayor.
That's, yeah, I think the question is, if you view the vice mayorship as ceremonial, then I don't think that ceremonial person, just for, hey, whoever's up, if there were 3 years, let's just say it happened, and I'm not saying this group is all good, right? And John's not going to go anywhere, so this is all silly, but in 10 years, if there's a group that, I don't know, I don't know that, I think
let's just cut to the chase, and we'll vote for the mayor in the next election, and the council will fill in the other guy's seat.
Here's the one I just thought of.
Well, let's not, we're going to keep going down rabbit holes.
The guy runs, he gets to be vice mayor. That mayor goes away, and now this guy who's never even run before is mayor. Just how to bring it out, man.
There's a lot of
scenarios.
Come up with
Crazy.
scenarios. I think what we should. I think we spent too much time on it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the path of least resistance.
That's what I'm trying to do too, right? How do we get, can we?
Could you if you can pull up the slide that shows the conflict, maybe we can just go right from there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the path of least resistance is just to have the person, the vice mayor, become mayor for the remainder of the unexpired term.
Of the mayor.
Yeah, you would delete this green sentence, and anything else the city attorney's office has drafted wouldn't apply. All the scenarios of termed out, not termed out, wouldn't meet any of them.
Then let's go with that.
We get our money back.
Excuse me. Okay, well, we can draft it that way, and then you can think more on it.
That makes sense, right? Just to go with.
So there's another one. So this is clarification of term limits in 2012. So we're going back. In 2012, the following question was on the ballot. Clarification of mayoral term limits, and it passed. Shall the Maitland Charter be amended to provide clarification that the city's 2 consecutive term limit in office renders a mayor who has served 2 consecutive terms as mayor ineligible to run for office of city council member at the next city election? That's the question that was posed, and it passed. So we looked at this last time. So basically, mayor terms out in year 0, April of 0. The next election has to be ineligible. Those are the words, which is, March of XXX1. Then he would be eligible, he, she, for March XXX2. So it essentially equates to sitting out almost 2 years instead of the year that a council member can sit out to run for a different seat. So like if Mike terms out as a council member, in the following January or whenever qualification is, you can run for a different seat. And, it's just a year. So they are different for a council member and a mayor under the current code. So this is the language. If you're fine with that, if you're like, you know what, we're okay with that after 2 consecutive terms as mayor, that's fine to sit out what is essentially 2 years, but it's one full, election because you wouldn't be eligible to run for your own seat. Then you don't have to do anything. If you want to amend it and you want to make it equal to a council member or longer than 2 years, so there's no conflict, nothing has to be done on this one. It's just if you're comfortable with the 2-year waiting versus, say, 1 year being ineligible for a council person that termed out.
I'm comfortable with that, and that's what people voted on the last time. I thought the question was it clear enough that there could be a legal challenge?
I think it's clear enough. Cliff thinks it's clear enough.
It's the definition between election cycle and election, and that's the difference, and that's why it makes a difference, and it's very easy to understand.
So I'm just going to voice it. I think I don't care if it's a year or 2 years, but I think it should be equal for if you're mayor or if you're a council person. I know it's all about, there was discussion about giving more people the chance and opportunity to get up here and serve, but we're kind of making that if you were the mayor 2, but for council person 1, I think it just needs to be equal. If you want to do 2-2, I'm good with that. 1-1, it doesn't matter, but I just think it needs to be the same. Because listen, I go out and I do walk the schools, or I'll go out and do a lake cleanup or something. I'm still out there as representing the city, just as the mayor does. So, people see me, people know, and if we're going to look at it, I think maybe we do 2-2. But I don't think you punish the mayor for being the mayor.
John gets to have his picture if Maitland matters.
That's true. That's true. There's a good picture. Was that the lean over kind of like I'm here for business?
Yeah. Sure. Tell me your problem. So, because this would not, this comes up obviously only potentially when you have a mayor that served 2 terms in a row who wants to run again. We know that this isn't going to get past the time for a previous person who might have served 2. So, John, in 2 years, and you win another term, Do you think you should have to sit out 1 or 2 years? I mean, and it's just one of these things. You've lived it. You've been on council. You kind of sat out one election cycle and went from city council to mayor. What do you see as I think you're the...
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess I'm hesitant to, since the voters voted on this last time, I'm hesitant to change that. And, it's what they wanted, and I'm less invested in what the substance of this is, rather than say, it's kind of, it's been decided.
You think it's been asked and answered?
It is settled, but.
But I do think there's enough kind of confusing language in it, because it has, by accretion over several cycles of charter review commissions, just like other ones, just added directly contradictory language. I think it probably needs some cleanup. I don't know if you have it, it's in the backup for this one. I would not just leave it alone. I think we do need to clean it up, just so it's clear.
And I think I have a version where we cleaned it up and just put like A, B, C, D, E, F. So if you want to look at it, that would just be a clarification or an interpretation.
Or lose about a half of the verbiage in there.
Yes.
So it's less likely to be confusing. And that's what the Charter Review Commission was actually. So, and it does. I mean, for the mayor to sit out 2 years, I think that here in Citizen, I have a pretty good argument for that. It's been on there kind of a huge juggernaut.
You are.
And it's just, maybe you need to sit out for an election cycle, rather than just kind of maybe a year, maybe 2 years. So I'm okay with that. When I'm done, I'll be done.
So maybe just come
I
back
think
with.
it's back to what Mr. Wild asked. How did you feel about you being able to come from council person to mayor?
Yeah, I was fine with that. I think and I think it's just kind of the Maitland political culture. I think was that people would join boards. They'd be on the Lakes board, then they'd be on the P&Z board, they'd be on the Park and Rec board, then they'd get up to council, and then they go for another term in council, and then if you survive all that, then you go and you be mayor. And that's happened. That's kind of what we've been doing for a long time. And so I think that's why that was in there. It's like if you've had 2 terms as council member, then you're good to go for mayor. But coming the other way, once you've kind of done all that, it doesn't make sense for you to.
So we're good with just clarifying this language and coming back and putting it on the ballot. Okay.
Here's where I think it's a little off though, Vance, is that depending on when your seat comes up, sometimes it's 1 year and sometimes it's 2 years. So it's actually, it's not necessarily equal among the different seats, because.
And I think that's why in the report, it's why they put the carve out for someone who turns out as city council to have no waiting period to run for the mayor's seat. Because it depended on what seat you were in, whether you could actually run or not.
Yeah, so I think it's different, because I think if you had it for, you could argue that if you're off for a couple years, people probably forget about, honestly, I don't know how, so I think it is different depending on the seat you're in. And if you're a mayor, you're off for 2 years, do you become less of a incumbent kind of situation? I don't know. I don't.
People have short memories. So.
Yeah. So I just don't know. I don't know how that. But if they have short memories, then that would be so that would be the same as saying that it should be a year for mayor too. So I don't know. It's a to me there is a everybody should be equal, but I think Mike's point is that this has been asked. I personally think it should be equal, but I think it's been asked and answered, and it's sort of tough to go back at the next opportunity and switch it.
Yeah, so
Good on that?
So I like the clarification.
Yeah, so we can clarify what we now believe that it means, and then have you guys look at the language. And I think I'd already sent it to Jacob. He may have already reviewed it. If not, I'll send it to him.
We have actually, what we've done, if we're talking now strictly about the mayor and avoiding the whole idea of what is an election cycle, is we've changed the waiting period, this is the proposed language, to 1 year to avoid cycle-based gamesmanship. But what we also say is that you calculate that 1 year is complete if the time between the term conclusion, not when the person may, for example, by gamesmanship, say, well, I'll just resign a little bit early, and start the date calculating. Because it's at the conclusion of the term they were serving is when the 350 days is calculated. And that ultimately means a cycle without the cycle gamesmanship.
By the way, to cycle this back to the whole vice mayor thing, you could get really sideways if what the mayor decided to do was do that. Then the vice mayor would essentially serve 3 months and then be out. I'm just saying. Please. I actually deserve to be hit. But I'm just saying, what a mess.
Okay, and the very last one was the appointment and removal of city officers and employees, and the concern was clarifying that members of council are not prohibited from discussing appointments and removals with people other than the city manager. So the way the code reads now, it can be discussed with me, but not outside, which means you couldn't go talk to a resident, or, you know, if you had a microphone shoved in your face and said something, again, only about appointments and removals. So.
Mike, how'd you feel about this amendment?
Yeah.
Mike,
What was
a really good idea.
What was the phrase? I was trying to remember the phrase.
Well worded.
Let me ask you this. So is the word, is this the way it currently reads?
So the strike through, so the way it currently reads is you read all the way down through the black, and what's struck out is there. So says that the city manager, they cannot dictate the appointment or removal of any administrative office. They dictate saying, tell me, go fire this one or that. Can't do that. Who the managers or any of the department directors supervise. So you supervise me, Maria, and Cliff. So you could speak freely about removing us. But the council may fully express its views with the city manager. So you could come to me and say, I really don't like this or that. You know, as long as you're not saying fire them, or, you know, as long as you're not dictating. Currently, it lets you talk to me, but that's the limit of it.
So let me ask that, Cliff. The only person that has the ability to actually remove a city person is the city manager, right?
Yeah, because your power is to then remove the city manager.
So the only way you could dictate the removal would be to go talk to the city manager. So I think the way I read this would be to say, you can't go to the city manager and say, you gotta fire this person.
Yes, you can't do that.
Right. But under the way it's currently written, you can go to the city manager and say, you know, so-and-so is just doing a terrible job.
Oh, yeah, and that, but here's the thing, that's not what this is addressing.
Yeah.
This is addressing the situation where you're knocking on doors and you're campaigning because it's going to be Mike Wild for mayor, because we know that several times tonight, John's moving back to Alaska. And so as a result of that, someone says, well, I would vote for you, but I need to know where you stand on the public works director, the fire chief, because I got a real problem with that person. And you say to that person, not the city manager, I agree with you, they got to go. That would be illegal now.
Do you think that that's dictated? How does the person who lives on so-and-so trail have any way to...
Anything discussing the appointment or removal of such officers, that is a limitation. And if you're talking to anybody who's not the city manager, that's where the potential issue comes up. This makes it clear that you can discuss, not dictate, but you could say, you could run on the platform and say, if I get elected, I will support putting pressure on the manager as a body to get rid of fill in the blank person.
Yeah, but you changed the word that I think is the most important. You changed dictate to discuss. And so that's why I think I don't know that I see this one as...
Well, I think it's probably the mistake is that I crossed it out in red, but it says, but it continues, not only the dictate part of it, which I get what you're saying, but the council may express its views and fully and freely discuss with the manager anything pertaining to appointment and removal. I think what the scenario that Mayor Lowndes had found is somebody used that to say, wait a minute, you're discussing something about pertaining to the appointment or removal of these officers with the newspaper. That's a violation of the charter.
And that becomes a basis for removal of you from office by recall.
They'd have to make their case. I mean, I don't know if that case went.
Have a recall election.
Yeah, because you're violating the charter. So this is to avoid you being in a situation where you are violating the charter.
I just don't know when you put this question out to the residents that they even would understand it based upon what we're...
But that's why I think... I think we need to change the first sentence. To me, the distinction is not clear enough if you leave the first sentence out. I guess that's my point. But.
Is there a simpler fix, Mike?
Yeah, but that's.
Is there a simpler fix you think?
No, I mean, I actually think, I think we're getting lost here. I actually agree with what you're trying to do, John. I'm just trying to figure out how to me, this is not, I don't know that this gets us there, because I think that's just my.
Well, let's look at it another way. You are now at a disadvantage as a city council person versus me as a candidate. Because I can go out and say, if you elect me, I'm going to put all kinds of pressure on getting rid of fill in the blank persons. And as somebody who's been subject to one of those, you and me, we know how that can go. So that candidate would have no restriction, and you would. That's not fair.
Yep. So I think that I think that the first sentence should be clarified to say that what you're really trying to get at is you can't demand or do something to the city manager to force them to fire somebody.
What about just the council does not have power to appoint or remove any of city administrative? Just make it a declaratory statement. Council does not have the power to do this.
I think, but some of it is intended, and you'll find it mostly in council manager forms of government versus a strong mayor who can go out and say, you know, I'm going to fire the police chief. I mean, because they work directly for that mayor. But also is that, say you get a ticket and you go like, I want that officer fired. This also prohibits you from going to any of the subordinates as well. I mean, it does have some merit to define that you can't go say, you know what, Sergeant so-and-so, I want this one fired because he gave me a ticket. I mean, you're just not supposed to be getting in the personnel business. And maybe it could be worded better. I can look at some other cities or look around.
I think the any manner is what's probably tripping me up. Is what if you said shall neither demand nor dictate the appointment or removal of any city blah 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 blah.
Because you think dictate is like a direct order.
I do. I think making a demand or dictating is to me that's the operative word in this. And I could be seeing this differently, but that to me is the operative word. And what we're saying is you can't go and tell the city manager you must do this.
And I do see a distinction between your scenario with getting a traffic ticket and being prohibited from talking to a resident about because this also implicates that situation as well, right? Someone has a big problem with Dan, I can't talk to that person about Dan.
Right. About his removal or appointment.
Right, yeah. But that's, sorry Dan.
So I think the question, and look, I still think it gets nuanced because you're talking about when am I discussing it versus when am I dictating it. But I think that those are the words we should stick with is demand or dictate up top, and then the distinction between a discussion and a demand.
I think the only other thing, and Cliff, I think that subordinates, employees, you might not understand that when you say things, it's almost like you dictated it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think you have to understand that, like, if you went up and said something to an employee, they might just go do it because you said it. You know what I mean? Not fire somebody, but I'm saying, like, I think part of that is you don't understand that when you say, boy, this should be done or that should be done, when they hear you say that, they think it needs to be done. Now.
So then, John, then the last sentence that we're adding doesn't work either, because how would you distinguish between the discussion and the demand?
I think he'd have to keep saying, this is not a direction to you.
But that's what I was trying to say with the top. I think you gotta, if you're gonna make it clear that you can discuss it, then you've got to say what we're trying to get at is the true direction. That the two do this, you must do this. But you're saying that's hard to distinguish between the you must do this and, you know, by the way, that person's really terrible. No, I mean really, really terrible. Like, I mean, at some point the lines get very blurry. But.
Yeah. Well, I can look again. There's a model city charter, and I can look at some other cities. It's not that unusual for city manager, council manager forms of government. It's meant to just distinguish who hires and fires. You know what I mean? Who hires and fires.
So do you want to bring that back to us next time as well?
Yeah, I think so. Give me a chance to look at some that might be worded. if I had my way, I'd delete it all and love to reword the whole, you know what I mean, the whole charter, because you're just like picking out pieces and striking through and underlining and.
I still think this doesn't necessarily solve the problem. If you get really fired up, if I get really fired up in a meeting, Liz, whoever, and somebody comes out and there's a reporter outside, and you say that person's so bad, I mean, I still think you potentially run afoul if you try to demand or dictate the removal, right? I mean.
So what are the, Cliff, what is the sanction for violating the charter?
Violating the charter is malfeasance as it's defined by legislative removal statute. And that is because malfeasance is a violation of any law, and the charter is a law. Moreover, in our charter, we specifically said, FYI, in case the general public didn't know, that violation of our charter is grounds for removal based on recall. So it would have been, even if we didn't say it, but we reinforced it and said it. And so that is the penalty. Now, obviously, you all know that removal by recall is not an easy process, but it is a process and it's provided for by statute. And so whether it's this provision or some other provision, and I assumed it was related back to me that the reason that this came up is so that no council member would put themselves in a position unwittingly of providing a comment about an employee or their job status that would then be seen as a violation of the charter and put you at disadvantage in just literally trying to respond to citizen concerns or whatever. We haven't had anything like this, and so I can't, I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but if we had a bad episode with a bad police shooting and there was outrage, what are you going to do? And the chief needs to go. If you think about what happened in Sanford, what are you supposed to do? I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to comment. We'll leave that to the city manager to comment. We don't say anything. When press is beating down your door, no, I think not. And so if you do keep it the way it is, you would run a risk, potentially, of being removed from office when you're simply trying to respond to something that you probably should respond to. And you could only then respond to under the current writing, and depending on who wants to take that role, as a group meeting, when that generally elected officials find hard to do. So the line should be, to me.
But the removal is only by
voters.
So it becomes a political issue. So really what this does is give you cover and defense for that scenario. You say, listen,
yes,
you said I violated the charter. You didn't read the last sentence where I fully and freely discussed things,
right.
but I didn't ask for anybody.
That's the purpose. At least that's what I assumed was what we were
right.
trying to get.
And the reason I asked that is because if the only sanction really is recall, which becomes a political thing right away, this would help you, but it may not help you. I mean, at least you would have that to look at. So I think that's the only balance.
Would we have to wait till the next election cycle for that too?
I don't know if it's ever going to make it to the election cycle. Who knows?
Yeah.
Sharon, does this work the other way too, if we're talking about like promoting members of, so I couldn't go to somebody and say, you know what, Kim, you've got an awesome guy on your team, you should promote him. That would be also violating.
Well, appointments like, it's intended to say, someone could make that argument, it's intended to say, you shouldn't go up and say, Kim, go hire my cousin Joe, he'd be the best groundskeeper you'd ever have. That's what the appointment and removal is supposed to, you know what I mean? It's that kind of behavior. It doesn't mean you couldn't give someone a compliment if they were.
But it does have a chilling effect on that if it's written this way.
What about complimenting?
I mean,
You could.
I mean,
somebody'd have to make an argument. I mean,
I know if I said, Chief, your captain's a great guy, and somebody goes, I'm going to recall you for that. And just,
but theoretically, right?
I don't see that in this time-space continuum ever.
no, it's more about like nepotism or make sure you hire my friend Joe or.
So, you're going to look this up some more?
Yes, Sharon's going to go see if there's anybody's figured this out better than we have, and look at it again. And so I think now we've kind of had a full run at this with all 5 of us.
Yeah.
So we're probably ready to make a decision next time when we actually have one.
Yeah.
Right. Just, that was me, sorry. So gender neutral will come back. We've got the language already for you to review, not dealing with the salaries. And then we'll come back with some version of the next 3.
some language.
Okay. Anything else on charter amendments? Sharon?
I don't have anything, no.
Okay. Well, let's move on to reports. City Attorney?
Yeah, briefly, and I think all of you know, but just in case, we had the hearing on the motion to dismiss for Peacock Board. Happy to report the motion is granted. I have not had any input or discussions with any of the folks representing Peacock Board since that time. I will be reaching out to one or more of those attorneys to see what their intentions are and see where they think this is headed. From my view, at least as currently structured, and it's hard to imagine how it would be restructured, there are two requirements that they will not be able to meet unless they actually file an application to do something. One is because we haven't provided a notice that would give them standing. We aren't going to. Number two is for them to file an application for something when they already have literally everything they want, except for y'all to change the law back to the way it was. So maybe they'll find a way to navigate around that. They're certainly smart people, but you should know, and I know the mayor does, I think Mr. Thomas knows, that we're entitled to prevailing party attorney's fees on the Burgers Act, and that would be about 20 grand right now. I think that some of that, if not all of that, has been reimbursed through our insurance carrier, but we would be able to get all of it back if they continue down this road.
Okay. And when does the time run out for them to refile?
There was nothing in the order, so it's 20 days from the dismissal, and we haven't heard repeat. It doesn't mean they're not doing something. I assume they are doing something.
It's been 20 days, then, or is it?
I have to check the calendar. It might be close.
Just because we were here 2 weeks ago, and it had happened several days before that, so I know they're
It's pretty close. I'll check.
Okay.
I'll check. But that just puts us in a position to file a motion to get paid, so.
Okay. All right. Well done. Let's see. City manager?
Just a couple of items. One is from community development. The LDC will be coming out electronically, so you will get copies of that. If you want print copies, there's 632 pages. The report's got a lot of notes and footnotes and other things that'll come out of the final. So this is just the draft. Let us know, and if we can keep it to black and white printing it, it'll be cheaper. And again, if there's just sections you want, that's fine. So once you see it, some of it, you're probably not going to want. Looking to schedule the workshop sometime mid-December. And during these, once it's distributed, if you want to meet with Dan and his staff, they're happy to meet with you, to do as many briefings as you need to get through 632 pages of this document, so you feel comfortable with it. And of course, we'll have the joint workshop with P&Z, so they'll be involved in that as well. And then once it goes through council, then it will go through the adoption process. So that's the next part. Orange County redistricting. So I spoke to Orange County, Byron Brooks, the county administrator today. That is happening, and it's happening relatively fast. It's on a bit of an accelerated timeline because the census data got there late. But right now, they're just in the public input phase. There will be a meeting here in our district, but it's actually, I'll send you the date, it's actually pretty far out. But those meetings are more for the public to come and hear. Once they've finished all those public meetings, then the redistricting committee will come back and start looking through those maps with more clarity. So right now, members of the public can come and play with maps and talk to the data. Some of the suggestion in speaking to Orange County is people do need to be moved around just because of growth in our district, and we may be one of those cities that's moved around. So maybe something where at a future council meeting, not too far down the road, we'd want to at least say a couple of things I talked about. Don't split us up. Don't split us in the middle down, by I-4. We really want to stay with Eatonville, Winter Park, and Maitland together. I don't know if they'll take that into account or not, but you know, we have working relationships in this part of town with all those folks and anything else you guys come up with, so.
Are they adding addition or just reading?
No, they're just shuffling, and you can go on their website, I can send you the link, and you can see how many they need to take out of certain areas and move around to keep the districts even.
They do it
Yeah, we don't want any more county commissioners.
Yeah.
Yeah, whenever they're responsible to the census every 10
It's like
years.
Congress.
Yeah, what we wouldn't want is to be split up, I think, by some divider. And that's it?
Okay. Thank you. Anybody on council?
I got something, we had a meeting when we were talking about the budget, and we had this nice big fat surplus, kind of pretty much in excess of what we need, and it's just kind of sitting there, and so we just kind of left it there, and just what drew my attention to it is PRAB had a meeting. Hill Rec improvements will consist of a small playground and a small pavilion to be built using leftover funds from last year from unused salary and part. So I'm just kind of wondering if we're kind of shortchanging what could go in, because when you do that, it's shortchanged forever. And I don't know if there's some process or where we are in the ballgame, because we have some other park projects coming up. If we want to just say, look, let's take $1.5 million out of the surplus, which would still leave us a very hefty surplus, and apply that to parks or whatever, and maybe. I mean, we keep talking about let's do all this stuff better and better, and now we have a chance to do that, and we certainly have the funds to do it. If you take money that's getting 0.01% interest and you invest it in long-term things that will last for 50 years, you're actually getting a much better return on your money than having it sit in the bank. Because those projects would be worth a lot more in 10 years than what you paid for now. So that's, and I don't know how we would do it. I don't want to get into a big discussion now, but if this is something we could bring up in another council meeting and decide, do we want to pull a set amount of money and designate it for a specific purpose like this? I know there's people, over on the Hill Rec side of the world haven't had a park in forever, and they don't have a place they can walk to with kids, and Maitland is all about kid-friendly and making amenities and kids' schools and that whole synchronizing effect there, and so I would rather have a very high quality park amenity there for people to go to than just let's throw up something with leftover funds. It'll be small. So
you want to add this to the discussion part of the agenda?
Well, I don't know where we would, and I don't know if you guys even want to do that, but we just talked about all this surplus money we got, and in the same conversation we talked about, well, we need to do all this stuff and get going, and we never kind of brought those two thoughts together. Do we?
Are you talking about Hill Rec in particular? Or?
Well, Hill Rec, as that comes to mind, I've always thought that Hill Rec deserved a first-class park, and maybe when they come in with some stuff on Maitland. Fort Maitland, we might see some stuff there that I don't know what the options are that we could add some nicer little touches or amenities. But the way I might approach it is just to say, well, what amount of money more do we want to spend on parks, or actually if you have another idea, but. And carve off a little bit of that surplus, because we could take $2 million out of that surplus and we would still be in very good fiscal shape. And so we're just kind of letting it sit there. And it's just not doing anything. It's been sitting there for years. And we went into all those purposes that it's sitting there for, and some of them don't really warrant it. So, every year we get to, well, let's, should we raise millage rate to do stuff? Should we raise millage rate to do stuff? And then we can do stuff without raising the millage rate because we've been so fiscally conservative in the past. So I just, when I saw that Hill Rec thing, it just set me off because I don't want to put up some, small playground, a small pavilion, because that's what we, would have funds for in our current allocation. When we in truth have a lot more funds than that. So, and we're going to have some other projects coming up, Lake Sedalia and things like that. So that's just kind of my wandering, meandering thoughts.
I would suggest, put it on for a discussion, and then I give Sharon and staff time to look at, what maybe there is available.
Okay. Vince? Is that
Huh?
Is that going to be your comment, or you want to put a whole minute on your own?
Yeah, if you don't mind. I just saw this tonight, and I was just wondering, where are we? With the Metro Plan Orlando, have we had gone to any meetings, we've heard anything?
In regards to?
I don't know, with regards to anything, are we pretty active with this? I guess my question is there any new news?
Yeah, we have staff on the technical committee. Maitland's one of those folks.
Right.
We stay active, we get all their information.
Anything new happening in the area, or? No. Okay. Also, we're just wondering, and Robert could probably answer this, how to go with the lake cleanup?
46 pounds.
46 pounds. Did we have any people with canoes or kayaks?
Yeah, they were in another municipality.
Okay. All right. Just a suggestion. I noticed when we were advertising it in the future, is there any problem with advertising to bring out a canoe or a kayak if you have one to use? Does that cause a liability at all?
That's something we can get back with you on.
Okay. Because that's really where we hit all the trash at, is picking it up out of the lake.
Yeah, that particular crew that brings the canoes, they were at a cleanup.
Yeah, they were doing a river cleanup.
On that same day in another municipality.
Yeah. I think that was the one they were doing for Marissa.
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
All right, I do it.
So John, and this is not for tonight, but in the future, how do we deal with situations where you have essentially a non-decision item, a non-city council decision, but you have a lot of people that come up? Because I felt like some of that we could have clarified, because I think there were some factual things about whether or not we had voted on it and what the timing was. I felt like we were sort of trapped on that one to not be able to talk about, you have a bunch of people come talk about an item. We can't really discuss it because it's not marked as a decision item. I don't know how we can, just a thought of how we can kind of help with those in the future.
Right. I mean, we can certainly make it a discussion item. It could have been, it's difficult, it's not on the agenda to have a full discussion of it. That's not to say we can't do it in the future.
Maybe have even staff, because it was, just give sort of how we got here, it might have helped or something, because we all kind of heard all the complaints, but then we were like, okay, we can't do it, and I think they probably left unsatisfied.
Right. I guess I would suggest that, we each individually get with, Sharon or Mark or Jay and, kind of get that.
How we feel about that item.
Yeah, get the download on that, and then tell them how we're going to say it. If anybody wants to put it on the agenda,
and I'm talking about less specifically that item, as far as like when we have just people come in, we know there's going to be a lot of discussion on an item. How do we help that? Because it was sort of, there was a lot of emotion there, and then essentially they just they said everything.
And we left with nothing.
And left with nothing, and I felt like that was an unsatisfying moment, probably for all involved. And so I don't know how we could help that or not. And it was a difficult position. I'm not, it's more like thinking forward. How can we do that in a way that maybe we could have given them some information or done something in a way that addresses, there was so much discussion on it, but it was really all.
Right, but I guess a lot of it had, I mean, I think that everybody has a lot more information than may have appeared tonight. I mean, I know that Jay's been working very diligently with every one of them.
Understood, but that's what I'm saying, is that,
you know, he's told us exactly what we've been talking about.
Our staff has been down there working. And
understood, no, so I'm saying,
that's
that's
why.
why.
For them to come in and say they were completely ignorant,
I don't know, it was a tough moment, and I'm actually not talking about, I wanted to avoid talking about tonight. Just when you have a situation like that where people come in and talk, how can we prevent essentially being looked like, hey, they just ignored what I said. And I know that's not what happened here at all. But how can we portray that in a way that is really the facts, which is that we've done anything but it. We've had such active discussions, all that.
Right.
Kind of and maybe that's not.
And it's to the point that, they don't know what the rules are, and we can't talk about it, and it's not in our power. That's a decision made by the city, but, I mean.
It probably just felt like an unsatisfying moment.
Yes.
And not that, so anyway, not a criticism, it's just how can we, is there an opportunity to look at that?
Okay.
I don't think we should do a charter review on it.
All right.
Okay.
Lindsay?
I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that's it for the evening. We're adjourned.